Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. It's wonderful to be here today with all of you. In the name of Messiah, which is one with Masaaki-sama, I'm very grateful we are able to hold this study together here this week. Uh, Different from last week, we've been doing part one, part two, and today was going to be part three for I now know your love by Masaaki-sama. But last week we received a great video. It's fresh. It's a brand new video from Masaaki-sama. Many of you might have seen it. So this week we're going to be doing that video. Okay. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has joined the sponsorship program. This year, we have a goal of reaching 75 families. So 75 families can become subscribers into the program. It is a monthly commitment, and we really appreciate your participation. It is through your participation in this program and your other donations that make it possible for us to bring this message to as many people as possible. Okay. If you haven't signed up yet and you would like to sign up, just follow along here on the link here below, and you'll see a QR code at the end of the loop of the video with the announcements. And with that QR code, if you're watching from your computer, if you're watching from TV, it makes it possible for you to access the site and participate. You can also go to our website, www.worldchurchofmessiahusa.org, and there you'll see the tabs, and one of the tabs is for the sponsorship program. Okay, so you can just actually click on that and you should be able to access this page as you see here, where it says sponsorship program. All right, and as you scroll down to the bottom of the tab, if you go to the very bottom here, you should be able to see the options for the donation for the different tiers and how to donate there. So you just click on sponsorship program, you'll scroll to the very bottom, and you'll see here that it is a monthly commitment, and then you can choose between the tiers, or you can put your own amount as to how much you'd like to donate. Okay, you can also do a one-time donation. That's fine too. And then here you can put the amount or choose any one of these amounts here that you would like to donate. But you're welcome to choose and participate. Again, the objective is for us to reach 75 families this year in order for us to get this message out to more and more people. This is definitely one very concrete way you can participate. You can also participate by sharing these videos. Now we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. Every time you make a comment, every time you interact with the video, every time you share the video, it makes it possible for more people to see this video. So we have over 2,000 subscribers to our pages, but if the videos aren't shared, if they aren't liked, if they aren't passed on, then there's really no way for us to share that with all those people. Even though we might have those people, if they're not constantly being shared, it won't get there. So we count on your collaboration to make that possible as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to begin our study for this week. Sacred Oath. With great fear of God, we acknowledge that the Lord God is our true Father, the one and only God. We revere Meishu-sama as the model for all humanity and as our own example to follow. Meishu-sama, who was born anew as a true child of God, the Messiah, by receiving the divine will that God accomplished in heaven. We believe that Jesus Christ, who 2,000 years ago embodied the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, is serving the Lord God in unity with Meishu-sama. And we regard the messages of Kyoshu-sama, who reveals to us the will of Meishu-sama in this material world, as the sole, absolute, an irreplaceable foundation in advancing our mission here on earth. Words of prayer. God, I acknowledge that you are alive. Within me, you are alive. I thank you for nurturing me to be newly born as your child. May this blessing be shared with all. In the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, I surrender myself to you. Please use me as you wish. Thank you very much. So every week we usually do an Instagram post or a hymn. And today I chose the most recent post that came out on Instagram for our official Instagram page of our church in Japan, World Church of Messiah. If you haven't joined, if you haven't liked that page, please do so you can receive the most updated posts. It's being posted daily, and there's much material for us to reflect on, for us to deepen our faith and our understanding of God's will, Meishu-sama's message here on this earth for each one of us. And the one I chose today is part of Masaaki-sama's greeting from September 2021. And this is actually a very interesting, right? Because it's a question that many of us have come to ask, right? When we talk about old faith and new faith, and what does that mean? And here, Masaaki-sama is very clear in this part of the message, sharing that with us. And I'd like to read it for you today. In the post, it says, "We say old faith and new faith as if there's a difference between them, but actually there is no difference. When we hear old faith, some say, then what have we been doing until today? Well, to tell you the truth, your hearts and minds have always been used by God to save those who are suffering in hell. That is, you have always been used by God in the new faith. For a long time, we have been saying and thinking, I have to do my utmost. But some things cannot be overcome by human effort. I want to be grateful for everything, but this one is hard, and so on. This posture of trying to overcome issues with human effort was exactly what God was trying to reap. And he did reap all of that as the end result of the human world. Even though you were not conscious of it, God used you for the sake of salvation all the way up until today, and is using you even now. But from now on, we will be used in God's work of salvation through our own will. So, if I have to point out the difference between the old faith and new faith, it is that. Greeting by Masaaki-sama, September monthly service, September 1st, 2021. Right? As we've been seeing, right? Up to now, God was using us freely in this new faith. But we were not conscious and aware of that. Now, out of our own conscious choice, God will be using us in this new faith, in God's work of salvation. Right? It's very interesting here. Also, one thing that caught my attention is for a long time we have been saying and thinking, I have to do my utmost. But some things cannot be overcome by human effort. I want to be grateful for everything, but this one is hard, and so on. How many of us have lived a life of faith like that? Right? Thinking that it is through our own strength, our own will, that things happen, that faith moves forward. And I want you to keep this in mind as we hear the video that just came out by Masaaki-sama. Video number 10, message number 10, justice, right? Some of you have seen this. I'm going to play it again. I believe it's a very important video, and I'll share with you my reflections right after we see. But please, let's keep that quote in mind about how we've been doing things out of our own strength, our own way of thinking as we watch this video now, okay? And I'll share with you in just a few minutes.
I am ready to fight against the whole world in order to defend justice. Do you know who said this? Meishu-sama. Meishu-sama was ready to face the entire world for the sake of protecting justice. Even though he could have lost the whole world, everything he had, he was willing to stand up and fight for justice. I think we all underestimate how strong Meishu-sama's sense of justice was. He said that he will save the righteous whatever it takes and by any means necessary, and completely and utterly wipe out the evil from the face of the earth. He said what counts the most is the unyielding will to defend justice whatever it takes. The only way to judge the value of a person is to see whether they have this will or not. The stronger this will is, the more valuable a person is. If you lack this will, you are just an opportunist who only thinks of your own interests. That is, you are a human only in appearance, with no substance, no guts. And he says, but to tell you the truth, nowadays almost everybody has become like this. Have you become like this and lost the sense of justice too? Or are you willing to stand up for justice whatever it takes? Are you ready to sacrifice everything you have for justice? Or would you rather compromise? Would you rather turn your eyes away from an apparent evil so that you can hold on to your worldly possessions, your own interests? Secretly following, wiretapping, and filming someone. This act might be tolerated in society if one has good reason to do so. But for people of faith to do this, it should never be tolerated. Meishu-sama says, know this, everyone. To do something behind someone's back, to do something against someone without being seen, is the same as stealing. Meishu-sama is saying that to do something behind someone's back is the same as stealing, the same as an act of a thief. For Meishu-sama, the act of secretly following and filming someone is an act of a thief, an act of stealing. Stealing is an evil act, of course. So for Meishu-sama, secretly following and filming someone, of course, is an evil act, an act that needs to be wiped out from the face of the earth. I mean, to be honest, I am ashamed that I even need to say these things to you. You should know better. How can the act of secretly following and filming Kyoshu-sama and his wife be tolerated? Have you completely lost your sense of justice? Are you blinded by your own interests? Have you stopped being a human being, as Meishu-sama rightly pointed out? Secretly following and filming Kyoshu-sama and his wife was an act carried out by people from Sekai Kyuseikyo of Japan. And oh, how pitiful it is that there are so many churches around the world that think it is okay to still be connected to Sekai Kyuseikyo of Japan and its sacred grounds. That there are so many people who think it is okay to secretly follow and film someone. Accepting Sekai Kyuseikyo of Japan, or accepting the churches that accept Sekai Kyuseikyo of Japan, is the same as accepting and tolerating the act of secretly following and filming someone. That is, it is the same as accepting and tolerating the act of stealing, the act of a thief. So accepting the ousting of Kyoshu-sama is the same as accepting and tolerating the act of stealing, the act of a thief. To those who say, this topic again, or I don't want to listen to this anymore, let me say, wake up. Wake up to the sense of justice Meishu-sama had. Don't you know that he even wanted to own a newspaper company in order to bring social justice and correct the wrongs of the world? I understand how Kyoshu-sama might have been a cause of trouble for some people who wanted to do things their own way. But look at how they dealt with Kyoshu-sama. Look at how they treated people who were inconvenient to them. They didn't choose to talk with Kyoshu-sama. Rather, they decided to secretly follow him to obtain some kind of information on him and use that information to control him. How horrible this attitude is. It is definitely not something that should be tolerated. And by the way, the information you obtained against Kyoshu-sama was that he has a Christian friend and that he's studying the Bible? Really? Or we tried to talk to Kyoshu-sama many times, but he didn't listen to us. Is that it? If diplomacy doesn't work with the other party, your choice is to secretly follow that person and use some information you obtained to control that person? First of all, Kyoshu-sama is the spiritual leader, and he doesn't need to answer to you. You need to answer to him. Kyoshu-sama needs to answer to Meishu-sama and Meishu-sama only. Let me say this to you so that there is no misunderstanding from now on. For followers of Meishu-sama, secretly following and filming someone and using that information behind closed doors so as to control others are acts that can never be justified, no matter what the reason. I mean, if you admit to the ousting of Kyoshu-sama, it is the same as admitting that you have given up on the teaching of love for others that Meishu-sama so emphasized. Where does the love exist in the act of secretly following and filming someone and then trying to control them through the information obtained from that act? And yet you say, love for others is important. Make others happy so that you can be happy. What hypocrites! You say, Kyoshu-sama is going against the teachings of Meishu-sama. You read Meishu-sama's teachings for what? If you accept the act of secretly following, wiretapping, and filming someone, what is the point of reading Meishu-sama's teachings? By committing or tolerating that cowardly act, you have completely lost the right to discuss or talk about anything related to Meishu-sama. Or, in your understanding, is that cowardly act part of the teachings of Meishu-sama? Part of what Meishu-sama teaches you? If you admit to the ousting of Kyoshu-sama, it is the same as admitting that you have given up on constructing a paradise on earth. What kind of a paradise is it if the act of secretly following and filming someone, then trying to control that person through the information obtained from that act, is being tolerated? And yet you say, I practice Jorei. Kyoshu-sama denies Jorei, but we practice Jorei. You practice Jorei for what? If you have given up on constructing a paradise on earth, what's the point of practicing Jorei? You say, we have the sacred grounds. We ousted Kyoshu-sama from the sacred grounds. You use the sacred grounds for what? What is sacred about the sacred grounds that are controlled by you who carry out or tolerate the act of secretly following and filming someone? The sacred grounds are tainted with that ungodly act. The grounds of the sacred grounds are being tainted with every step you take, you who carried out and tolerate that ungodly act. The sacredness of the sacred grounds is all gone. You say, we have all the artworks, we have the museums. You have all those artworks and museums for what? Meishu-sama taught us that the most beautiful masterpiece, the most important artwork of God is a human being. And yet you carry out and tolerate that cowardly, disgraceful act toward Kyoshu-sama and his wife? If you don't know how to treasure and respect human beings, there's no way you can treasure and respect any artwork. So basically, there's really no point in you owning those artworks. All the artworks are being tainted every time you touch them, those same hands that committed that ungodly act. What I'm getting at is that all the churches in the world that accept the ousting of Kyoshu-sama, and all the members who accept these churches that accept the ousting of Kyoshu-sama have given up on practicing love for others, on discussing anything about Meishu-sama's teachings, and on constructing a paradise on earth. That is, they have given up on being followers of Meishu-sama. To you who accept and tolerate the act of secretly following and filming Kyoshu-sama and his wife. To you who accept the ousting of Kyoshu-sama. To you who accept Sekai Kyuseikyo of Japan and its sacred grounds. To you who accept the churches that are connected to Sekai Kyuseikyo of Japan. I declare today, in the name of Meishu-sama, in the name of Nidai-sama, in the name of Sandai-sama, and in the name of Kyoshu-sama, you are not a follower of Meishu-sama anymore. I mean, how can I say that you are a follower of Meishu-sama? For Meishu-sama's sake, I can't do that. You are just a self-proclaimed follower of Meishu-sama. To you who stood up for Kyoshu-sama, to you who did not tolerate that cowardly act, congratulations. But beware, if you judge those who accept the ousting of Kyoshu-sama even a little, if you think you are better than them even a little, God will judge you in the same way you judge them. God will apply to you the same rules you apply to them. They acted that way for our sake, for us to wake up, for us to become true followers of Meishu-sama. They acted that way because God ordered them to do so. They acted that way because of you, because of us. If we forget this, it is the same as falling into the hands of the living God. And we know who said, I will take revenge, I will repay, and who also said, the Lord will judge his people. It is a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living God.
How about that? Very powerful, isn't it? For many of us, it must be very hard to watch. Right? But why is it so hard to watch? And I think that it's because it hits the spot, right? We ourselves became these people with a lack of sense of justice, right? We prefer to look the other way. We prefer not to deal with what's going on. We, for a long time, believed that it was with our own strength, our own way of doing things, that we were able to accomplish anything. Do we not? Is that not how we acted? To the point that we took possession of this church. We took possession of Meishu-sama's teachings. We took possession of God's work and consciousness, as Kyoshu-sama has been showing us, and used it to our own convenience. And because what was being shared was inconvenient to that way of living, we reached the extreme point of secretly following, wiretapping, and videotaping, filming Kyoshu-sama. Right? Used that information to try to quiet Kyoshu-sama, to move him away, right? To take control of the church. It's a very serious act. We are no longer living a human-centered faith anymore. This new faith, as we were looking in the beginning of the study, is to center in God, recognizing that God is doing, right? But we have to consciously accept that God is doing and working through that. But we haven't been able to do that. You know, I was very surprised when all this came out in the very beginning, right? When all this trouble within the organization came out, I was surprised at the number of people who wanted to look the other way. The number of people who did not want to discuss this matter. Number of people who were willing to accept the secret following, wiretapping, and filming of Kyosho-sama and his family. And the number of people that got upset, not at the people who were secretly following, filming, wiretapping Kyosho-sama, but got upset to the fact that this was not being tolerated, was not being accepted. So every time Masaaki-sama brings this up, how many times have we heard people, oh, this talk again? Why this talk again? But you know, as we received this video, I felt a tremendous love and care from Kyosho-sama and Masaaki-sama's part. A huge wake-up call, very severe. When I say love, I don't mean, very nice, comforting love, but a very severe, paternal love, trying to wake us up to the people we became, to what we did. It's a wake-up call for all of us. We can no longer call ourselves followers of Meisho-sama and do what we did to Meisho-sama. We can say that it was done, the secret following, wiretapping, filming was done to Kyosho-sama, but it was done to Meisho-sama, to Meisho-sama's image, to Meisho-sama's work. It's very sad, disgraceful. It's not for nothing that Kyosho-sama, Masaaki-sama have brought this up for us to wake up from this posture that we had. When we talk about sense of justice, we can easily, and we usually use that word in our own means, in our own gains, right? Oh, justice. I have to fight for what's right, for what I want, for what I need, and misinterpret Meisho-sama's true sense of justice, which is what Kyosho-sama, Masaaki-sama are trying to wake us up to, I believe. In Kyosho-sama and Masaaki-sama receiving the will of Meisho-sama, number 11, we have a very clear vision of Meisho-sama's sense of justice. Why Kyosho-sama and Masaaki-sama are sharing with us all that's happening, all this that's coming forth. And I'd like to read that with you. I know that we've probably studied this before. Be resolute. But I like to read with you one more time here today. And in it, in Meisho-sama's sacred word, we have to defend justice, whatever it takes. This counts the most. Why? Because God protects justice. No matter what you do, if you forget justice, you will fail in the end. In my life, I fought many times and met with various persecutions, but I never yielded. I always stood for justice and never gave in, never budged. As a result, I started to win. Defending justice puts you in a miserable state for a while. That is why we feel it is inconvenient to act justly. Usually, when trouble comes your way, you choose an easy way out instead of acting in terms of justice. This method is only effective for a short period of time. But if you choose the path of justice, of righteousness, you will come to know that God will grant you the final victory. Sermon, November 25th, 1953. In regards to that, Kyosho-sama shares the following. I imagine many of you are surprised, anxious, or worried about what is going to happen to the church upon hearing about the current state of the church. The problem facing all of you is my problem too. In order for us to overcome the current situation we are in, I am determined to take a firm and definite stance and to never give in while always seeking the heart of Meishu-sama. For us, there are no adversities that we cannot overcome. Know this, everyone. Meishu-sama has already prepared within us the strength to overcome any adversity. Grand Spring Service and Prayer for Abundance Service, March 4th, 2018. To this, Masaaki-sama shares the following. Although incomparable to what all of you have gone through, I also was attacked in various ways by Sekai Kyuseikyo, including the revocation of my membership status. But this is what I think. There are things in life you are allowed to compromise, and those you are not. And here's the thing. What Kyoshi-sama is teaching, this, to me, is something that cannot be compromised, or rather, something that can never be compromised no matter what is done to me. And so, I made my decision to walk together with Kyoshi-sama no matter what. This, I believe, was the same for each one of you. To the ministerial staff of the Shinsei region, November 14th, 2018, published in Glory number 14, March 1, 2021. I think this video and this sonin of Kyoshi-sama, to stand up for Meishu-sama, what Meishu-sama fights for, has to be within each one of us. If we say we're following Kyoshi-sama, there's no way to say we're following Kyoshi-sama and neglect what Masaaki-sama is sharing. It's one message. If Masaaki-sama is sharing regarding this, right? The secret following, wiretapping, and filming of Kyoshi-sama, I believe that there's a part within us that lacks this sense of justice, that does not want to face this that we did, that we committed. And we need to repent for that. We need to recognize that. It's not about judging those who did this. It's about reflecting on our posture, on our attitudes up to now. Do we truly want to be considered a follower of Meishu-sama? Right? Because to truly be considered a follower of Meishu-sama, we have to be recognized by Kyoshi-sama as a follower of Meishu-sama. Kyoshi-sama is the one who grants us the permission to be or not a follower of Meishu-sama. It's not the church revoking or not your membership status. As Masaaki-sama said very clearly, right? They became self-proclaimed followers of Meishu-sama. They don't have Meishu-sama's recognition as a follower of Meishu-sama, because Meishu-sama only grants that recognition through Kyoshi-sama. And if we truly want to be a follower of Meishu-sama, I believe that we need to reflect within us. What is our posture? What is our attitudes? Are we going to stand up for what Meishu-sama believed in? Are we going to stand up and unite ourselves with Kyoshi-sama to fulfill the will of Meishu-sama? Or are we going to stay in a very convenient in-between? I accept this, but I don't accept that. I like this, but I don't like that. Now, another point that really caught my attention in this video is that Kyoshi-sama is Kyoshi-sama. We answer to Kyoshi-sama. Kyoshi-sama does not have to answer to us. We have to seek Kyoshi-sama, his approval, right? We have to seek to follow Kyoshi-sama, not the other way around. When Kyoshi-sama defines something liturgical, something regarding the sacred words of Meishu-sama, Kyoshi-sama has the authority to do that. That's his role. That's how God is using Kyoshi-sama to do that. We are in no place to agree or disagree if that's happening or not, if it should happen or not. But if that's not clear within us, then how can we call ourselves followers of Meishu-sama? It's the same as turning to Meishu-sama and saying, Meishu-sama, I agree with what you wrote here, but I don't agree with that there. Meishu-sama, you should do this or you should do that. It's strange, right? Sounds strange, doesn't it? Preposterous. But I, for a long time, have had that posture. I, for a long time, had that attitude. Were it not for this conflict, internal conflict within the church, were it not for Kyoshi-sama firmly standing for justice, were it not for Masaaki-sama firmly standing for justice, I would have never been able to see that part of me, that posture in me. And for that, I'm forever grateful. That's why I say I can feel the great love Kyoshi-sama has. Masaaki-sama is reaching out to each one of us for us to truly follow Meishu-sama. But it can no longer be done in the way that we've been doing up to now, based on our convenience, on our strength, on our way, on what we would like, what we wouldn't like. We have to consciously take the step forward to follow God's will, God's way. And that's a choice that has to come from each and every single one of us individually. We can't return one day when we meet God, Meishu-sama, face to face, and say, well, these ministers that I followed said that they were and they knew what your sacred word meant, what your plan was, so I followed them. I allowed them. I recognized that Kyoshi-sama was followed, wiretapped, filmed secretly. And I let that go because I had gratitude to them, to these ministers. So I overlooked that. In the United States, and I believe this is worldwide, if we see a crime and we just watch it happen, we are aiding that crime. It's legally illegal to do that. This is a crime that was committed to Meishu-sama, that we collectively created. And we collectively, but individually, have to take ownership for that and repent. We can't just aid and abet. Do you really think Meishu-sama would be happy? Is happy to know that we're just overlooking that? Or because we don't agree with the way Meishu-sama is doing things, it's okay to take possession of Meishu-sama's church, use Meishu-sama's name, say that we're following Meishu-sama? We can no longer live in that way. And I'm so grateful for Kyoshi-sama, for Masaaki-sama, to firmly take their stand, to clearly show us Meishu-sama's true sense of justice, to wake us up. We need to wake up. There's no more time. And it's a choice that each one of us must make. And I hope that all of you watching, together with me, can join Masaaki-sama in his zoning to make our decision to walk together with Kyoshi-sama no matter what happens. because Kyosho-sama is the only one who can truly guide us to follow Meishu-sama's will, to be a true follower of Meishu-sama. Thank you so much for letting me share some of these thoughts with you. I look forward to next week as we go deeper into this message and as we continue part 3 for I Now Know Your Love that we've been studying for the past couple weeks. May all honor, may all glory be returned to God always.